We got some important information for couples this morning, and it involves fighting. We are looking at how to win a fight, an argument, if you will. A recent poll, if you're wondering, found that Americans fight with their spouse pretty frequently. About 30% of people say that one or more times per week is normal for them. 28% say one or multiple times a month. And I don't know these people, but a third of people say once or multiple times per year. Of course, it's not just couples who get into arguments. That's not many arguments, to be honest with you, or disagreements. To help you win any of them, social psychologist Heidi Grant is here with tips on how to get it done and when you should back off and lay down your arms and agree to disagree. So I was interested to read that you should not, in an argument, focus on why you're right.
Not right away, right? It actually turns out to be, I think, probably the biggest mistake people make in an argument with anyone. We think that the way we're going to win, so to speak, is to just sort of pummel the other person with all the reasons why we're right and they're wrong. And not surprisingly,
what's wrong with that?
Right, it doesn't actually work because actually all human beings get a little defensive about their beliefs, their opinions, their preferences. We want to feel like we're right. So it turns out there's a technique that's really powerful. It's called a two-sided argument. So you actually start by why the other person is right? What's legitimate about your point of view? What's valid? What's at least understandable? And if I do that, I start by validating your perspective, it turns out you're much more open to mine because it makes people less defensive and then they can finally hear you, So if you start by validating the other person, then follow up with why you're right, you're much more likely to persuade them to come to your side.
Gayle?
So you say, I see why you feel that way.
Exactly, and ideally,
and
you're
what if you don't really see
it.
why they feel that way? I remember once in marital counseling, the guy says to me, Gayle, do you want peace or do you want to be right? And I said, I want both. And he said, well, it doesn't work that way. All this sounds really good, but in the heat of battle, it's very hard to validate.
I think you're absolutely right, and you said something really important. It's the heat of battle. So sometimes when we're going into these conversations, we are feeling a lot of emotion. And so being able to do that sort of perspective taking where you do understand where the other person is coming from is quite hard. One simple thing anyone can do actually at any time when you're feeling a lot of strong emotion is what psychologists call labeling. It takes just a moment. You pause and think to yourself, what is it that I'm feeling? I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling frustrated, I'm feeling defensive. And simply labeling your emotion, there's a lot of research that shows it kind of brings it down to a manageable level. From there, you can actually think, all right, am I being fair to this other person? Can I take their perspective? Have a better conversation.
Speaking of labeling, how do you label a win? What is a win?
Good question.
I think the win-losing frame is a really bad way to approach any argument. I think really the goal should always be, ideally persuading them to change to your point of view, and at minimum being understood. I think often in a relationship in particular, if you can get to a place where you feel there was real mutual understanding, that's its own kind of win that has a lot of lasting positive effects.
I see a ring on your finger. Do you use these techniques at home?
I do indeed. I'm sure my husband is watching right now. And it's funny, one of the things that we just actually had
Is he throwing shoes at the TV?
He may be actually wondering now why I have said a few things that I have said. Yeah?
Heidi Grant, she'll be home soon.
It was good advice.
We'll be right back. Thank you for being here.
It was good advice.
Yeah, great.